weekend goes, we'll get sad news out of the way right away. Dwayne Haskins obviously passes away down in Florida. Very, very sad news. There was obviously some very insensitive people out there that felt like they needed to tweet this before his family found out. I don't know how many of his family members found out because of these Twitter accounts or anything, but I'd say that's pretty embarrassing. And I think that between the three of us and the guy that you can't see here, we can all make you a pact that under no circumstances are we going to be news breaking guys, and under no circumstances will we ever do that to anybody or their family. So I don't know if you guys have anything to say about any of that stuff, but I mean, it was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, there's really nothing else you can really say other than like the guy fucked up.
Yeah.
And like, there's no sympathy for him. Like he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And we're referring to Schefter here.
Yes, we
when you're talking like that. Yeah, we're not referring to Dwayne. Yes.
We're definitely referring to Adam Schefter on this one. Yeah, he made it about himself, and he put a very tasteless tweet to start off with. And he almost like he kicked the man when he was down, like trying to say that he struggled to make a roster.
Yeah.
And the sad part is we're talking about this opposed to this guy's phenomenal college career.
Right.
We're talking about an asshole at Adam Schefter instead.
Right, exactly. And no, he didn't choose to get drafted by Washington. He didn't choose his coaches. To say that he struggled in Pittsburgh is absolutely ridiculous because not only did they love having him in the building, they actually re-up with him and paid him a decent amount for what would have amounted to be the second or third quarterback on the roster. Unfortunately, that's not going to be meant to be for him. So obviously thoughts for him and his family. And, there's not a whole lot we can say about it because we're not really in the journalism business and we don't really know a whole lot about the situation, but let's just hope his family makes it through. Now it was, moving on, it's hard to move on to something like that, but moving on into different avenues of football, the Browns actually added another quarterback, which is kind of, to me, maybe tipping the hand that they have a little bit of inside knowledge as far as what Deshaun Watson's future looks like. Based on the signing of Josh Dobbs and Brissett, and Baker's still there, and I would say until the suspension is actually handed down, Baker's still the starting quarterback of Cleveland. I think we could probably all agree with that. Definitely Kelly will be able to agree with that. But this to me tells me that Deshaun Watson's suspended for the whole year.
He has to be. There's what else could he? You're bringing a body in and you're going to pay somebody.
Which kind of it makes sense now with why they added that extra year. Everybody looked at the year of the contract, like, why did you add an extra year? You give us so much and then so much money, and now you're going to throw another year on there. Now we know why, right?
Right, and it makes sense. And you know what, like, allegations be what they are, and let the justice system play that stuff out, because far smarter people will make those decisions than us. But if even a little bit of what he's being accused of is true, then yeah, he deserves to miss the whole year. Like, why does this guy deserve any of the money? So I would assume, and it's great news for the Steelers defense, that Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback for Cleveland on week 1. And, until we hear otherwise, I think that that's the only narrative that we can roll with.
It's going to be 10 games regardless. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you might as well just set him down for the whole season. To bring him back in to risk him getting hurt long term. Like you said, you added the year of the contract. That contract is very hefty. And it almost makes more sense, even if he's not gone the whole year, just to shut him down and play for a draft pick.
Right.
And if you want to give Baker the respect he feels he's earned, let him play for his next job.
Right. Well, and there's differing opinions on what kind of respect he deserves. But yeah, if that's the way that you want to do, and if you're the GM of Cleveland, his trade value can only go up, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of interest at him at $20 million right now, fully guaranteed. So I don't think he's definitely not getting cut, and I don't imagine that he's getting traded at that number. So that is the best avenue that you can come out if you're a Browns fan. Come out and, if it is 10 games, you come out and Baker Mayfield gets you to 6-4, and then, go from there. But big news for the Ravens, who finally signed a free agent. I don't know. And this guy came into the building and left with a contract, which is the complete opposite of what has been happening to the Ravens all offseason. And they brought Calais Campbell back, which, as far as defensive linemen go, I'm going to say he's probably in the top 10, right, in the league. He's on the end of his career, but
I hope that Josh can get the clip from back when we talked about one of their playoff matchups. I believe it was last year when you down talk Calais pretty bad
because he was hurt.
It's good to hear that you like him.
Yeah, I mean,
a 6'7" defensive tackle is freaking insane, man.
Yeah,
like the wingspan that guy's got, that's huge for Baltimore. Not just in the run stuffing category, because that is what his like best ability is. But again, just the fact that he can tip the ball from damn near anywhere on that field, just getting in the quarterback's face, it's a great surplus for them.
Right, and you know, Chad will tell you like any defense starts on the inside, and that's how the Bucs built theirs. Does this fix the fact that the Ravens have absolutely nobody in the secondary? Probably not, but I don't know. I guess sign a guy like this, and you get third place in the division.
At the end of the day, it just helps them, and it doesn't make them a worse football team. And I'd rather have him on my team than play against him.
Right.
One of the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
And he's more of the leader in the locker room. I think that's the biggest thing why they wanted to bring him back. He's very vocal, and he's very. You can always tell he has his teammates' backs. And so yeah, like even when Lamar was struggling, he was out there and advocating for him. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why he is back there is they got him at the price what they can agree on, and he's just a leader in that organization.
Right, and as you can tell, when we lead the show with Calais Campbell getting signed to the Ravens, it was a relatively slow week in football. But we are 17 days away from the draft, and I know everybody on here definitely enjoys the draft. Because we're going to talk about the draft, Kelly is going to be very vocal because if anybody in our viewership watches college football and knows college football, it is her. So feel free to chime in with any picks or anything that you got for us, Kelly. And that goes for anybody. But we do have our mock draft 1.0, which we're going to release a little bit later on. But we're going to go through some props and just some ideas of what the draft might hold in the first round. So as far as quarterbacks go, Chad said it in the last episode, but we're all pretty much in agreement that 3.5 is the over under for quarterbacks in the first round now, right?
Over all day.
Okay, so you think
Sam Howell?
3.5?
I have to take. If you give me at 4.5, I think I'd have to really look at it.
Yeah,
but I think it's got at 3.5. You got to take those odds.
So I mean, at that point, are you thinking that Howell gets into the first round or Ritter?
I think Ritter. Everything I've listened to says Ritter's the guy. He had a significantly better senior season than Howell. It's crazy how far Howell's fallen off the radar because like he was considered one of those top 4 quarterbacks last year, and he came back, and now he doesn't even exist anymore.
I mean, we told Kelly we weren't going to do this, but I mean, we were going to have to, right? Because the biggest knock on this guy to date is that he looks too much like Baker Mayfield, and that's not us just making fun of him. That is what the narrative is out there, that their body frame, the way that they throw, the way that they play is so similar, and people are going to shy away from it because of the struggles that Mayfield has had in the league. So is that fair to Howell? No. I did hear today that somebody suggested that he shaved his beard until at least after the draft, which I thought that was kind of funny too. For me, I don't know. He probably slides into the second round anyway. But if there was going to be a 5th quarterback taken in the first round, it is probably Howell. As much as I've been beating the drum for Carson Strong, it doesn't look like everyone's on that same bandwagon.
You're the only one on that page.
Well, hey, and look, I mean, I'm sure that 25 years ago there was somebody out there talking about this Tom Brady guy that fell to the 6th round, and somehow that worked out. But surprise,
Terry Bradshaw when he went to the hospital, the only guy who was using that name Tom Brady and telling a story about the name Tom Brady at that point in time.
yeah, and the the other quarterback that's kind of in the mix would be Bailey Zippy, who nobody knows who he is. And with full disclosure, only reason I do is because I watched the bowl game and watched the guy break the record. So
is that the Western Kentucky kid?
Yeah, exactly. Cool helmets, pretty cool offense. They run like a true air raid. But does that translate to the NFL? I don't know.
As Colt Brennan.
Sure, that was exactly the name I was going to drop, Chad.
Yeah.
Ask Colt Brennan. Yeah,
it does not translate at all.
Yeah, I don't think that you can be an NFL quarterback and throw the ball 85 times in a game. But look, these things are always changing. I don't think many people knew who Patrick Mahomes was. I'm not calling Bailey Zippy Patrick Mahomes, but maybe he'll come in and do something different that nobody knows about. So
with a name like that, you should sure hope so. Because I don't know what he's got, planned post football career.
Yeah, well, I mean, this guy probably needs to go.
Insurance.
He needs to get
a car dealer or insurance salesman. Chad, you and I are on the same wavelength tonight, man.
This guy needs to get a convenience store, and it'll be Zippy Zippos. Yeah, Zippy Zippos. He can start his own brand of Zippo lighters. I think double Z's. I think that it would work. All right, so who's in the quarterback market then? The obvious on this show would be the Steelers. Are the Saints a serious quarterback content? Like, you think they are? Yeah. Even with paying Jameis that money?
Absolutely. I think it's just so smart to have those picks to package them up and move up if you needed to go and try and jump somebody, to go and grab Malik Willis. I mean, that would be, I think, one of the most perfect pickups for that offense, man. Guy with a deep arm. They can get some speedsters there. They don't have to ask a lot of him if they got Michael Thomas there. He'll catch the ball with anything within a few yard radius, right?
Well, I was reading something, and they seem to have some pretty good authority that one of those picks is getting packaged and sent out to Seattle.
Seattle is the one I keep hearing about too.
For DK. And if the Saints can get DK on one side and Thomas on the other, you probably don't want to bring in a rookie. I mean, at that point, you're probably looking at keeping Jameis, right?
Well, and then they got that speedster. I always forget his name. That 5'9" kid. Who's that? What is his name again? There, he's got like 800. He had like 800 yards this year, I think, and he's a young guy. He's only first or second year. I can't remember what his name is, but that would be having those two guys again. You throw the ball up. I've always said DK is like Randy Moss 2.0. What faults him the worst is the fact that the guy just can't catch sometimes. It's stone hands.
Right.
But he does exactly what Randy does with way better physical ability.
And he's built like a Greek god. And I mean, nothing against Randy Moss and his body type, but like DK Metcalf and Randy Moss had different body types.
You know? I think the Giants are a team that's still looking.
Yeah. Yep. So you're not. Yeah, I know you're not sold on Daniel Jones, and I mean, I know that's going to hurt Kalen's feelings. It usually does.
Carolina, Seattle, the Giants, Detroit, obviously.
I
think
the Lions.
That fourth quarterback is a perfect spot of those last picks there with the Lions.
Right, and the Lions definitely. So I mean, of those teams, who would let it slide and who's in the worst position? It's probably Seattle is the most desperate for a quarterback. They also have 2 first-round picks, so it does make sense that that they would try and get a quarterback with one of those picks, right? And as far, I mean, would I be surprised if the Steelers didn't take a quarterback? Not really. Would I be surprised if the Saints didn't? Not really. But would I be surprised if Seattle didn't get one of these guys? Absolutely. I wouldn't even be surprised if Detroit didn't, because look, Jared Goff has played in a Super Bowl before. I'm not beating the drummer saying that that's the guy that I would want to line up. So did
Rex Grossman.
Well,
Trent Dilfer won one.
And so did Kerry Collins. Like,
yeah,
there's always going to be that quarterback that rode that wave.
You love Kerry Collins, man.
Well, I did love him in the tail end of his career. Yep. But he was an absolute drunk when he was in Carolina and New York.
Hey,
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a good glass of scotch.
Hey, this guy was enjoying Shake Lager before we even knew Shake Lager was a thing. So I got mad respect for Kerry Collins for doing that.
And he went through the bad times in Oakland with Randy Moss. I'm pretty sure. Did he not? He was on the same team together for a year there. What's that?
When was the good times in Oakland? Can you please explain this to me?
I think
even when they were good, you were still playing on that shared diamond field, right?
Yeah, yeah. Their best year was 2002.
Yeah, it was a great year for me, though.
Yeah, I don't think it really worked out for them in the whole Super Bowl thing. Well, yeah, so the quarterback market, as we kind of talked about, and as everyone else disagreed with us, every time you get closer to the draft, these quarterbacks that aren't supposed to be first-round picks, what do they become? They can become first-round picks because the quarterback, it's such a quarterback-needy league, and everybody needs one. If you don't have one, you have to continue to look for one. Some teams, it takes you, what, like
25 years, like the Browns?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Browns
have been
yeah.
Sean's not proven.
Look, and if you look at the Bucs, like outside of going to get Tom Brady, like what did they do? You know, like it's not like they hit a home run on a draft pick. And if you start looking at the teams that have actually hit home runs on their draft picks, even in the last 6 years, who is it? I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City.
The Saints. The Saints are pretty good draft. That's the only reason they can flex the way they do with their cap every single year. You have to
Well,
be able to draft well.
I'm talking about drafting quarterback. Like, who was the last
yeah.
quarterback the Saints draft? Aaron Brooks. I don't. Not exactly a household name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough for those teams that have been good or they've had a good quarterback for a long time. Look, the Steelers have drafted 2 good quarterbacks in their entire existence, and one was Terry Bradshaw, and the other one was Ben Roethlisberger, and they are years and years apart. So it is not an easy thing to do, especially for one of the winningest franchises in football, like the Cowboys. The Cowboys, I guess you call Dak Prescott, so you would go from Troy Aikman to Dak Prescott.
I guess the Chargers would be the next one.
Just because Chad's here doesn't mean that you have to tickle that storyline with that Romo isn't good enough to be mentioned there.
I'm trying to get him fired up. I'm trying to get him fired up. He wasn't paying attention.
He's not even worth mentioning. He's a fucking loser.
Yeah. All right. Well, there it is. Now that Chad's
Phillip Rivers got drafted to San Diego.
Yeah.
Manning went to the Giants, and the other Manning went to Indy, right? But even still, like after those guys, it's hard. You're rolling the dice, and it's that draft class with Roethlisberger, Rivers, and Manning was just something else.
Right, exactly. And that's why these teams continue to have to go back to the well because they don't have this. Now, is Trubisky the answer for the Steelers? I think that they're willing to roll the dice and see. Is Jameis Winston the answer for the Saints? Again, I think that they're willing to roll the dice and see because of all these other players that they can get and bring in. Nobody's signing up to play beside a rookie quarterback. Not many guys are Mac Jones, and not many guys are Patrick Mahomes, even though he didn't play as a rookie. But the guys that these guys are throwing to seems to be one of the deepest positions in this draft. And we could probably say that for the last 3 years, right? The wide receivers continue to get better and better coming out of college.
It's the game's getting simpler and simpler. That's what it is.
Okay.
They're not asking these kids to do anything special.
Right.
You're running a couple routes, and the game's now been manufactured to the offense. And you're bringing in specialty receivers to go into situations where they're going to succeed. Because now on every team, there's your burner, your route runner, your underneath guy, and a guy that can play the middle of the field. So you're just drafting to a certain need at that point. Like now it's probably there's a Wes Welker type of player. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like that's someone you actually draft for now.
Right.
Opposed to just drafting a good wide receiver. Like a kid like that 15 years ago, they would have tried to stick him out wide because he had massive production in college.
Right.
And now they've recognized that you just don't do that now. If you're not going to put these kids into a situation to succeed, then you're not going to draft them if they can't come in and impact right away.
Right, and I think there's a chance for there to be 7 or 8 receivers drafted in the first round here. Now, it could be somewhere between 4 and 8, I guess, is where depending on where you're going to grade people. I think that there's 4 automatics, and we'll kind of bang that through. And I hope Kalen's happy with the guy that Tennessee got in our little mock draft there because when I did it, I thought, you know what? I think Kalen will like this.
Yeah. Before we go too far into the wide receivers, I want to come back to something really quickly because it's kind of talking about the draft and everything as well. I don't know if you guys saw the story now, but it was quarterback talking about Carson Wentz, how Washington had nobody else bidding against them to get him. So if you had the opportunity to take Taylor Heineke and $2 million out of $2 million salary and get your draft picks, because they give up 2 draft picks too, and get $26 million in your pocket to go and play in free agency with, or you can get Carson Wentz. What do you honestly do there, guys? Are we seeing something that the Washington isn't? Like everybody in the world would not take Carson Wentz in that trade, right?
So I'm going to tell you, it was not a football decision. It was a PR decision. And I'm not sure if you've heard a whole lot of what's been going on over there in Washington, but
it needs some attention off of them.
Yeah, old Danny Snyder needs something off of him, and having a quarterback that would have a bigger name to carry and how bad he's going to suck is probably going to take a little bit of the heat off of them. Plus, it can ignite a rivalry for them with the Eagles, and not necessarily that they have that in play, but I think that the Eagles having to play Carson Wentz twice a year at least changes the narrative from like a boat trip or two. You know what I mean?
I see. Okay. Get some tickets sold.
Yeah, they well
Carson Wentz is selling more jerseys than Tyler Haneke.
Hey, lawyers are expensive too. So I mean these guys
been
need
there before.
the, these guys need some money in the bank so that they can pay their lawyers. And as far as the wide receiver market goes, Kalen, how do you feel if the Titans were to take a receiver in the first round?
I'd be happy about it. There's three positions that I want the Titans to focus on in the first round this year. The first
we're not there yet. Did you not read the rundown? Don't you jump ahead like that.
He asked me with the Titans if I'd be happy. So what I'm just saying the two other positions would be quarterback and O-line, and we'll get to that later. I'm just prequeling to later. Wide receiver, I'd be super happy with. Do I like the player that you chose for the Titans?
You should.
He's a touchdown machine. I mean, he's done that in college no matter what. He's a touchdown machine, right? The problem is I don't know if he complements AJ well enough. Is he not AJ? In a sense, is he not AJ Brown? The way that he gets the touchdowns. I feel we need somebody to take the top off of the defense.
Olave is the guy like Devin Smith in Philly, but with some actual muscle. So
he's great. Listen, I think route running technician, he's fantastic. But that's again where I think like he's the intermediate route runner.
We are getting off script and it is fucking pissing Chad off. So let's circle back here for a second because I could see him fuming and I don't want any of those car parts to get all worked up. All right. I did ask you the question. It's my fault. Full disclosure. All right. Do we have any, and we're sticking on skill positions because this is what we're going to focus. Like, if you're watching this thinking that we're going to break down how a left tackle is going to affect somebody's offense, you are in the wrong place. Are there going to be any running backs taken in the first round here?
Chad?
No, I was going to talk about receivers still. I had a guy written down here and just
okay. Hey,
I think Treylon Burks is the one who everybody's not talking about from Arkansas.
Love him.
11 touchdowns, 1,100 yards, big body. He actually reminds me of AJ Brown. The way he can box people out and the way he can run down the field. I can't believe I'm using AJ Brown as my reference point. That kind of hurts me a little bit after how much I make fun of Kalen on a weekly forum.
Number ones are easy to reference. I understand.
Yeah, that's why I thought this kid will never be number one. He looks like a number two at the most best. But he's the second leading receiver in SEC history, only behind Devontae Smith. It's a pretty good company to be in. And Arkansas really wasn't known as winning football games the last few years in a really good conference.
Also, I mean, if you've watched any Arkansas football over the last 2 years, like their quarterback wasn't really like a throwing guy. He was literally a left tackle that fell forward, like just a big unit. And look, when he got going, and he could throw the ball. But this guy knew how to locate whatever knuckleball he was throwing at the sideline. And I fully believe, as much as it's not the way that I think that they should go, I fully believe that Treylon Burke is going to be a Steeler in the first round.
Okay.
He looks like a Steeler to me. I'm usually pretty good at deciding, and Chad can attest to this. I usually write out a list of 3 players, and the Steelers always pick one of those 3 players.
He's not wrong. Always. He actually does. And I
do.
One of them, and he's right at least once every year.
Yeah. So that is the guy that I picture in the black and gold. But anyway, yes, I completely agree, Chad. Like, he's a thick body. He'd be a hard guy to tackle. And imagine that unit coming at you in December when it's cold in Pittsburgh. You don't want to tackle that guy. It's a monster. So,
as far as running backs go, I just don't see anybody going in the first round.
Yeah.
It's such an unvalued position anymore.
It's not even just that. It's just like nobody needs one. Can you tell me a team that needs a running back right now?
Because no one uses them. That's why. It's so like, why would I don't need a running back for 5 years.
What about the Chiefs?
Yeah, well, we all know how we feel about that guy.
Yeah, like they could use a first round pick as a running back.
But yeah,
they could use defense though.
Yeah, lots of it. Yeah, lots of it.
I think that'd just be a shame to invest on the offense in a team like that. I guess the teams that need a running back are so stacked everywhere else and they need help on the other side of the ball so much. It just doesn't seem to be that running back either in this draft that is like that Zeke that can do that 3 down back type of stuff. That's also going to be running a 4-2. You know what I mean?
But there's 3 running backs in this that are probably going to be starters, but they don't have to get picked in the first round because of what you guys are saying, the demand for it. Kelly just brought one up. Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M has been a productive guy for the last 3 or 4 years down there.
And can be a 3-down back.
Exactly. And, last year, a huge transfer into Michigan State was Kenneth Walker III. Some people say that he should be a first-round pick.
But now he doesn't have too many miles on him. Like, that guy got a lot of touches last year.
Or was he a flash in the pan?
No. So he... No, and there's no benefit to me. Like, at this point, every time I love a running back, they either get drafted by the fucking Browns or the Ravens. So it doesn't matter. Like, I don't want to hype them up too much because, the Ravens are probably a team that are going to be in the running back market too. But Kenneth Walker, big guy, his durability isn't going to be an issue because that big workload was 1 year. He didn't have that workload at Wake Forest. He doubled his 3-year output at Wake Forest just in 1 year with Michigan State. All the touchdowns, as long as he's in a pro-style offense, he will be 100% fine. And then from Iowa State, if he came out last year, he probably would have been a first-round pick. Bryson Hall. And that guy, another productive guy. Now, to Chad's point, maybe that's a guy that you're worried about with the too much wear on the tires. But if you can get him in the second or third round and make him a number 2 running back, you're probably in good shape with that.
I'm just not paying any kid first round money to be a running back in the NFL. Your lifespan's 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, look at all these top guys, and they don't pan out.
Yeah, and like from what, Chad and I have been beating the drum for take a quarterback in the first round so you can get that 5th year at a cheap price. You don't really want a running back in a 5th year because that's a huge price.
That's a big price, and that's usually when the production drops.
Right, exactly. So getting somebody like that in the second or third round, I think would be fantastic. There's also, and Kelly, here it comes, Kennedy Brooks, who's probably going to be a 6th round pick from Oklahoma. He is a guy that could be an easy number 2 running back for any team, and any team would be happy to have him.
Good golly, you're just spraying a little gasoline on her fire, making her feel good for finally coming back and not talking shit about Oklahoma, eh?
Well, hey, I don't mind this Kennedy Brooks guy, and I was a little bit surprised when I saw 5th or 6th round, but he's probably gonna have to play special teams, and he's probably gonna just take a few carries here or there. But he's a big load, and yeah, see, there you go. She loves him. He's gonna be a touchdown guy.
The Lendell Whites type of player, right? Inside the 10 yards, the ball is his kind of thing.
Yeah, depending on what team you're on, but like if this guy say went to Minnesota, like yeah, he's gonna get the ball over probably a small Dalvin Cook kind of guy. But
Dalvin always breaks the ball for like 70-yard runs. That guy's crazy.
Yeah, he's like the best fantasy pick every year, and everybody chirps.
He's such a wild, like agile running back, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, is there going to be a first-round running back? No. The over-under is probably going to be sitting at 0.5, and I don't think anyone sneaks in there. So, when CoolBet finally comes out with their odds, we'll probably hit the under on that one. Speaking of our friends over at CoolBet, we kind of have like a little double announcement here for them because they gave us a little bit of prize money for our Bracket Buster Challenge, and we finally got a champion. I tried to get him on today, but he has to put his kids to bed. Totally understand. We're going to catch up with him a little bit later on. But Steve DeGatano, he got his $500 win from us. Big one for him. Another avid CoolBet player. The guy even texted me on the weekend for another code so that he could give it to his friend. Now, for anybody that's tried to use the Going for 2 code last week, you might have had some trouble with it because it was only set up for Canada, not Ontario. That has all been rectified. They have fixed it. Feel free to go back there and check it out. And the value pick of the week, because the games have already started today, all the baseball, but tomorrow is when the NBA play in. So, Kalen, I know you're our NBA guy, but tell me how I did here. We got the Timberwolves -2.5 and the Hornets +4.5. And you parlay that, you're going to get about 3 to 1 odds.
I don't mind that.
Okay.
I don't mind those odds at all. I really do think that the Hornets can be somebody that makes some noise. The West is the East is the powerhouse at the top, and the West has got like one good team. I feel I really like Phoenix though.
We absolutely can get you hooked up with that, Kelly. Don't worry. DM us after the show so we can figure out like a style for you.
What's you got going on?
she's looking for some caps, and we
Swag.
could, and we definitely got swag, and we're gonna get that thing sorted out. We're actually working on something that could probably get it out to her a little bit faster. So Liam and I will do that off camera. All right, mock draft 1.0 going for 2. With the full disclosure, and so that these boys don't get buried on any of these picks, I did this after a few thimbles of scotch the other night, and I did do
1,
every single.
2, 3, 4 fingers. How many was it?
Hey, it was enough to make a difference. So you tell me. So yeah, I did run through a lot of these picks, and I think that I did okay as far as need, but we already had a Lions fan that wasn't too happy with his pick. Anyway,
What did he want?
Look, he's a Lions fan. They don't know what they want.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
they don't know any better.
I think that was a solid pick for you, man. If they have 2 bookends like that, that's a solid team for a while.
And that's what I used the logic, and let's just get right into it. So, number 1, we had Aiden Hutchinson going to Jacksonville.
How do you feel about that, guys? I know you hate Michigan players and Michigan in general here, but like, is that a really wild jump for a guy who we just talked flash of the pan. Yeah. Might be a flash of the pan.
Have you ever seen a balloon touch a light that's been turned on?
Where do you come up with these type of analogies?
He was off all day today, Caitlin. What do you think he was doing all day?
Hey, the family has had COVID going through. I have been at home working from home for the last 4 days. I don't have a lot to do. I mean, so yes. after I get through my work, that's what it is. But this guy is going to be the loud sounding bust. And it's unfortunate for the Jaguars. Look, I wish that better success for the Jaguars, because we've always kind of had a rooting interest in Trevor Lawrence. But in your division, Kalen, I think that you're totally fine if this is the pick that they make, right?
Yeah. I'm not really worried about. Again, he's just a small body, a small frame. Like, am I wrong? Am I thinking about somebody else? And like his wingspan is really small, like for what it should be.
Yeah, I mean,
which is important for edge rushers and tackles.
For sure.
Like, that's what's incredibly important for your punch and your first strike. And like, I remember there just being something about this guy besides the fact that he's just got a small frame that is something about like, yeah, I don't know, something about that. I don't know.
I think you should tweet him out and tell him all what you just said and tell me how that goes.
Hey, listen, it's not his fault if he gets drafted 1.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. Before every single game, he takes mascara and rubs it on the side of his face. So that tells you all you need to know about this fella.
His dad was an NFL player.
Yeah.
So he's got something going for him.
Look, is he good?
Go to Jacksonville, he's going to tank. But like, is that Detroit?
Yeah. I think that you want this guy to probably be like your, I don't know, like 9th, 10th, 11th overall. Like, taking this guy at 1, he's not Joey Bosa. He's not Nick Bosa. He's not going to wreck it. Like, he's not TJ Watt. He's not going to wreck games. And I don't know. I understand why this is the pick, but
it's because there's nothing in this draft. That's really what this comes down to. Like, any team would trade out of those 3, like those top 5 spots if they could.
If it was me and I was the Jaguars GM, and I guess I kind of was, but I was doing this as realistic as I could, I would take Kyle Hamilton. And
the best football player in the draft.
Yeah. And look, I mean, if you want someone to shut you down in safety, like, that's where you're gonna go. But we got Hutchinson going 1. We got Evan Neal going to the Lions, which would give them absolutely ridiculous bookends. Slide Taylor Decker inside. He'll be fine there. Travion Walker goes to Houston, and then the Jets finally get one right, and they get Kyle Hamilton. So good for the Jets, and they need it.
I confirmed that Hutchinson thing. It was that his legs or his arms are short. They're like a full inch shorter than what is considered like the base for what should be wingspan for an edge rusher at 33 inches.
Right.
So
and
yeah. Going back to what your draft you were saying there to revisit it, I think that first sets of picks, they all made sense. Every one of them would made and Josh, get your head out of your ass.
And Kalen, I just gotta tell you, you hurt Chad's feelings because he doesn't like when people make fun of people with short arms.
And inadvertently, did you just make fun of him there? Is that what
Yeah.
just happened?
Yes, of course. It's okay, Chad. We love you anyway. The Giants get a tackle whose name I can't pronounce, but they need a tackle. Good for them. Carolina finally takes the first quarterback, Kenny Pickett. Is Kenny Pickett the first quarterback coming off the board here?
I don't think he is. I think it's going to be Malik. I think teams are going to shy away from him. And I think people are going to start trading up to get people. And if you think you can get your quarterback at 9, 10, or 11, I think that's you're going to take it. And I think as the deeper you get, that intrigue of Malik Willis happens.
Right.
You're paying less and less for each pick that goes by. Kenny Pickett is the most. What's that?
Does he wear 2 gloves?
We has to.
Kenny Pickett.
He
He's got the tiny hands, right? So isn't that just going to weird people out too?
At his nubs.
Who's the other quarterback? Was that Josh or Joe Johnson?
Kurt Warner wore 2 gloves.
Kurt Warner did it, but then wasn't the Bucks quarterback? Was it Josh Johnson? Was that his name?
Josh Freeman?
Josh Freeman. Did he wear gloves?
No, guy was like 6'6".
Maybe it was Joe Johnson. That one who just signed with the Jets just recently. He used to play for the Bucks too.
That guy's had a hell of a career.
Yeah, that guy's been on 15 teams.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's deaf in one ear too.
All right, Liam, you and I got to work on a group rate for shipping down to Oklahoma because it looks like we got about 20 people on tilt here. So, all right. So Kenny Pickett goes to Carolina, maybe according to us anyway, according to me. But we're all taking credit for the same stuff. And then I chose not to call him Sauce Gardner, but I know that people want to call him that. But I'm just going to stick with a mod. And the Giants make their second pick and they get somebody in the secondary. So good for them. 2 quick picks in the top 10 and probably 2 guys that help their team immensely.
Now, do you think Gardner moves up?
Maybe.
He's probably the only corner in this draft that can do those things.
Yeah. And I almost put him on the Jets at 4. Because, like secondary help is definitely what they're after. But I just overall, the second I could get Hamilton realistically off the board is when I did it. And, like I said, it should have been to the Jaguars.
So you don't think that after chasing the wide receivers like we hear them doing in the offseason that they're not going to go after a wide receiver? I do like the Kyle Hamilton pick strictly because I do think he's probably the best player in the draft.
Well, I also like the Jets have other picks in the first round, right? So for them, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, they do. And for them, you can get a receiver later and you can still get. So if you could get Hamilton and, the receiver that we have for them on the next page, just let me get there. Then I think you'd be pretty happy. So yeah, Gardner goes to the Giants. Kayvon Thibodeau, who apparently is the Bo Callahan of this draft.
Everybody's visiting him.
Yeah, well, apparently if this guy had a birthday party, nobody would show up. People apparently don't like him. I don't know. I don't know why. That is 100% speculation. I do not know anything about it. But when I heard
it reminds me of Ziggy Ansah, and it does nothing for me. That's all I can think of when I see him play.
Yeah. Before the season ended, this guy was the first overall pick, right? Like,
yep.
And talent-wise, that seems to be what he should be. Apparently, he doesn't try hard in practice, and people don't like him in the locker room. Again, pure speculation. But that seems like he'll fit in perfectly in Atlanta. So let's send him down to the Falcons. And then Malik goes to Seattle because they're the most quarterback needy team. And maybe we're a little bit biased putting him there, but no big deal. And then to finish off our top 10, Drake London goes to the Jets and they get that receiver that they desperately needed. How are we feeling about the top 10?
No O-line help for the Jets, eh?
Well, the Lions took them all.
Because you left Penning off the board.
We haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
He slid.
I didn't know we were going through all 32.
Well, we're not going to go through all 32 picks for sure.
Oh, okay.
At this point, we're going to do the highlights. I figured we would do the top 10, and then we'll do some highlights, some names that people are going to know that have kind of shown up, and then we're going to go through the picks for our team and see how we feel we did for our teams. So skipping down to 13, Jordan Davis, the absolute monster, ends up in Houston. Jameson Williams is the receiver that the Saints get at 16. Devin Lloyd goes to the Eagles, so they finally get a little bit of defensive help. Your boy Penning also ends up in New Orleans, so get their receiver and their tackle that I don't know we thought we needed. And then our first team comes on the board, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I couldn't help myself after talking to Chad to just give Desmond Ridder at 20 to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna credit this one totally to Chad. Chad talked me in. I was a Willis, and Chad talked me in. He told me a little bit about the throwing mechanics and why he thought he'd be a successful quarterback in Pittsburgh. As long as we have somebody that can move around, because our O line's not very great, we're
You're
cool.
4-5.
And I'm cool with it. So how do you guys feel about Ridder going 20th overall to Pittsburgh?
as asinine as it sounds to make this jump, everything that you just described about Ritter might be the reason why Seattle wants him too, and why they may take. I know it's crazy because
Yep.
Malik had all the hype coming into this draft with his throws and his pro day and all that crap. But what if Ritter's the actual one that Seattle, and it makes sense for them too, right? They don't have a good offensive line either. They need a sound technician quarterback. He doesn't have to play right away. He could sit behind the quarterback. Yeah,
I like anybody who goes there can compete to start.
Yeah. So I mean that makes a lot of sense. In that scenario, would you have? Are you telling me I just want to know, did you angle this mock out so that you could land Ritter in Pittsburgh? Is that why you put Malik there? Because you have been very forthright about why you put players in certain spots, but you're like, Malik would put that because it makes sense. And then we went into the rest of the draft. So does he make sense in Seattle? Are you truly just trying to play your heartstrings and get Desmond to your team?
I think that most people are going to put Ridder as a second round pick. So for him to go in the top 10, it would be difficult. Hey, if they do it, they do it. Seattle picked Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. And I'm sure that if you had them redraft, they would have picked him in the 1st round.
Mm-hmm.
Not for any other reason except for you could get an extra year of control. That guy was a starter right away. If you know, you know. And for Willis, I think that they're just gonna. He just makes more sense. He's the sexier pick at 9. And if they were going to go quarterback at 9, I think that's where they end up.
Especially if they know they're kicking DK out. They needed somebody a face of the franchise, right?
Right, exactly. And if they're looking for somebody that,
which Willis, I still don't believe is real, by the way. So we're on that. I think that's still just rumor hype bullshit.
What's that?
That DK or Debo, even with him deleting all his pictures out of the 49ers, or AJ, wherever,
that's all hype. Yeah, that's how you get paid in the NFL. You just delete them or unfollow them on Facebook or whatever, and then the GM gets butthurt and he decides to pay you. So whatever, it's a funny game. Do I think Ridder makes sense in Pittsburgh? Absolutely. He also has a glowing recommendation from the Bengals coach. Zach Taylor is actually the guy that recruited Ridder to go to Cincinnati. Ironically enough, now he coaches the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think that one makes a lot of sense. But the guy that I think is actually going to be a Steeler on draft night, Treylon Burke, I actually have him going to Green Bay at 22. I think that would be an awesome pick for Green Bay, and I think Green Bay fans would be pretty happy about it.
Green Bay has to go receiver this year.
Yeah, I think so too.
And think of the weight on that wide receiver's shoulder, right? Like the fact that Devontae is gone, they've never drafted a wide receiver in the 1st round, right?
Nope. That's why I'm so mad.
Yeah. So
hey, Aaron Rodgers is gonna love what I did for him. And Dallas, another team that needs to stockpile their receivers. We're gonna go ahead and give them Garrett Wilson, another Ohio State guy. 2 Ohio State receivers are going in the 1st round here. Buffalo gets a pass rusher. And if you want to check out all these picks, they're all posted on our Instagram story. I don't know if they're actually anywhere else, but we could probably hook you up with the whole thing if you want to see all this. But we move on to Kalen and the Titans, and he kind of already spoiled this, and we definitely dropped this early on. But Chris Olave gets mocked to the Titans, and Kalen's hands are like this, or they're like this. I'm not sure.
Honestly, man, at this point, any of the top 5 wide receivers, I'd be doing this for. That's really what we need. So I do like the pick. I'd be surprised if either of those Ohio State wide receivers. I do like your draft. Your draft has all made sense. It really has. But I still think, and we've mentioned earlier, that there's going to be, I think, a string of wide receivers taken in that mid-teens range for some reason, whether it be trade ups or they're just the best players available. And that's where I think these Ohio State boys are going to get taken pretty quickly. I think that they are better. Those two are better than Drake London, and I'm pretty high on Drake London too.
Well, and you know what? They've had better production than Drake London. I happened to watch a few of his games early on in the season before he got hurt. I think that Drake London's going to be an absolute superstar in the NFL.
I'm praying, and I know it's so unlikely that Williams drops. That would be my and it would just be such a John Robinson pick because he just drafts players with torn ACLs or that are injured like fairly, and then Simmons before that. It just makes sense for him to chase another guy that's hurt, right?
I was so close to giving you that Michigan edge rusher that that tore his Achilles.
Just for that reason?
Because honestly, it made sense for Tennessee, and it also made sense for like a team like Tampa Bay, who doesn't necessarily need anything. But if they were to need something, I think I got this half right for Chad. So we got him a safety. He's been begging for a safety for years, but we got him a safety for Michigan. So
fuck that guy. I already changed my pick.
Yeah. So so Chad, how you feeling about Dexton Hill coming to the defense?
You can go somewhere else.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. I went with my note here. Kyer Allen from Florida, the corner. He's 6'2". He's long. He's lanky. He plays in press coverage. I almost had to read his name because I didn't want to butcher his name.
Yep.
And he can play man. He can play press. He actually can come up and play the run. And I like SEC corners. And I like SEC DBs. Nothing against Kevin Michigan. The guy's a baller. He's going to be a baller in the NFL. Yep. I think corner's a bigger need than safety is for us. And if there's a really good safety out there right now, and I still think he's going to end up in Tampa somehow. So I think after the draft, I think he's going to end up there.
Well, I only did it, Chad, because the last few drafts we've watched together, there's been safeties out there that you wanted, and they just wouldn't pull the trigger for you. And this time, it is time for Chad to get his safety. And whether they do it or not, it's on them. The guy that you picked, he does come up a little bit later. But we swing back to Green Bay because they not only took one receiver in the first round, they took two in Jayon Dotson from Penn State. An absolute like ball catcher. Like this, if they were to get this guy, I think all Green Bay fans are going to be pretty happy with this. Is it realistic that Green Bay has just changed their philosophy that now they're going for two receivers in the first round? Probably not, but
we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers' contract. It very well may be in there. We will draft a wide receiver first round every year you're here with us.
Hey, I mean, if they could get those two, I think that they'd be pretty happy. Not saying Dotson is what Burke is. I think Burke would be the true number one, and Dotson and what's his face? Not Eli Rogers.
Amari
kid
Rodgers?
From Clemson. Yeah. I mean, those guys will be able to eat up some targets. And then really quickly to round things out, Nakobe Dean from Georgia goes to Kansas City. And then Kansas City has back-to-back picks, so they also get Elm, who Chad wanted, the corner. And the final pick, well, we gave Cincinnati an offensive lineman because you have to. The final pick goes to the Detroit Lions, and they take Matt Corral as their quarterback. And
it's going to be a quarterback of some set. I don't know who it's going to be, which one it's going to be. It could be Ritter. It could be Corral. It could be Sam Howell for all I know at this point. That 32nd pick is going to be a quarterback for that fifth-year option reason only.
Right, exactly. So now they have a receiver, like they have a number one receiver ish in St. Brown. They got their tackles, and now they got their little quarterback that they need to protect. And who better than a couple of top 5 picks in the draft than to protect your quarterback, right? Slide your other tackle inside and go from there. So overall, Kalen graded my draft an A++. Chad, how do you feel about it?
Well, you gave me Michigan, guys. You failed miserably.
That's fair. I can respect that. I mean, the hatred has to be real. So, I can tell you one thing that we wouldn't hate together, and that is a Bubba keg from our friends over at Bangarang. And we have 2 of them sitting in my fridge, just waiting for our in-person draft party. We haven't decided where we're doing it, but if we do it out, we will invite people. If we do it in, you will get to see the live reactions of all of our team's picks. We might even follow through our mock. And it's pretty safe to say, boys, that we're going to do one of those group chat mocks again, right? And that'll be our final one.
Yeah.
I think we had some fun doing that. So we'll probably get that out in a couple of weeks. Now, before we move on to our little bit of baseball before we sign off here, we have no show next Monday. Easter Monday, we're going to enjoy with the fams, and we're not going to do a whole lot as far as the show goes. But, the morning brew will be out there. Hot takes and pancakes will be out there.
I did get called out for not eating pancakes.
That's fair. I was waiting for that to happen. It only took 2 episodes. So, I mean, maybe people are smarter than we give them credit for. All right. So, Major League Baseball this weekend. A little bit of buzz. Is it hard to believe that that's the first time the Rogers Center has been that full since 2019?
Well, they weren't allowed to play here the last 2 years, so
no, I know
it's a pretty safe
But
guess.
They played after July 30th last year, but it was at like 25% capacity or something. But is it hard to believe that that was already 3 years ago? 3 years has passed since that point.
I'm actually shocked it was 2009. I would have said 2016.
Holy shit.
I would have thought the 2-year playoff run was the last time it was that electric in there.
Yeah, I mean, opening day is always a big thing.
They bring open those extra tarps at the top, right? This might be the year, though, Shane. And we've talked about, we called who we thought was going to make the World Series. This might be the year those tarps stay off for the majority of the season. Like, I may not early on. I know there's an early season hype right now, and it always kind of dies down. But when you've got June and July and there's nothing else going on besides baseball, right? And you're going to have good Blue Jays baseball.
Yeah, right now they're on the road with the Yankees, and they just got themselves out of a bases loaded jam. So
there you go.
2-0 Blue Jays. I agree with you that the fan hype is there. Even if the team was bad, I think that attendance would be good because nobody's been allowed to do anything for so long. One thing that I think will hurt attendance a little bit in May is the fact that for the first time ever, the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to play a hockey game in May, or at least the first time in how long? Like since like '93.
Yeah, can they make it past May? Get out of that first round. But no. Coming back to that too, you've got 3 Toronto teams. Not that I really think the Raptors have any type of real option here to make it to the finals, but you got playoff hype across all the teams, right? They're all good. They're all viable type teams right now that are competitive within their divisions, and that's where I think it can kind of roll, like steamroll. And the Jays being at the very end of that kind of a snowball effect. I think that's where you can get that kind of 60,000 or however many fans in the stands throughout the July and August season.
And, the question mark over the last 3 days in Toronto, as far as baseball goes, has been what is wrong with the pitching staff? And I'm just going to set your mind at ease for a second. It was a 3-week spring training. A lot of these guys maybe pitched in one actual game. They're not even fully stretched out. They're not used to facing regular competition. Jose Berrios has been one of the most consistent pitchers for the last 5 years. He will be fine. Gossman is an absolute natural. He probably should have started the first game, but because of the big contract they gave to Berrios, they didn't want him to feel displaced for a new free agent coming in.
And let's be honest too. At the same time, like they paid these guys, but if you were going to tell me one Achilles heel on the Jays and what it still would be, it would probably be their pitching, right?
Their starting pitching, so far has been unproven. Their bullpen's been fine,
but Jordan you're not worried about their bats, right? And you're certainly not worried about their defense. Maybe you've mentioned sometimes that Bo can be a little bit errant out there at shortstop, but that's still a position that our defense is not a worry for me with the Jays. It just comes down to me. Their bats are going to keep them in the games, but can their pitching be there too? That's my worry.
Well, I think opening day made it very clear. They got down early.
Yeah.
They rallied. They got the confidence back. They came back and won a baseball game. They didn't come back and compete. They came back and won.
Yeah.
And to do that, their defense had to stop people. And their bullpen had to bail them out.
Right.
Just so the bleeding didn't keep going.
They went and got the best defensive third baseman in the league so that Bo's tunnel would be a little bit shorter. He doesn't have to use his backhand anymore. He just has to run to the ball in front of him. And that's going to help him out a lot. Chapman's going to solidify the defense. But if you have a starting pitcher that can't get out of the first inning, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Long term,
especially late in the season, right? Like that's where the pitchers are going to be tired and worn down, and they got to go 6, maybe 7 innings sometimes. That's unrealistic in the playoffs, but sometimes you do have to ask it of your big name players, right?
Yeah, and overall, I don't think starting pitching is going to be their concern. I think that they're pretty solid in the bullpen. Where they're going to run into trouble and where they're going to have a matchup issue is if there's really really strong right-handed pitching because they don't have any lefties. So
Yeah, yeah, they're really going to be fighting uphill there, aren't they? Now, who would
yeah,
that be? And there's nobody in our division that even have a solid left-handed pen either, right?
yeah, and overall, you would love to have at least one or two power bats that are shooting from the left hand side. You don't have it, so everyone's gonna want the thing that they don't have. Um, they've already got dealt their first bit of adversity. Their catcher just went on the DL, so we'll see how that works out. Uh, Chad's 100% right. Their offense is strong. They're not going to have any issues winning games. Most of the time, if you score 5 runs, you're going to win the game. You don't count on the other team scoring 7 or 8, but it is what it is. As far as the Masters, we already covered it. Any final thoughts before we sign off here, boys?
It's draft season, man. That's what it comes down to. It's the best time of the year.
Well, hey, we got about
Two shows left.
Yeah, well, we got one show before the draft now because we're not doing next Monday. So we got about 2 weeks to figure our stuff out. And if you're somebody that likes to try and follow your prospects, I would say avoid the combine, go onto YouTube and find their highlight reels against quality opponents and see what it looks like.
Oh, so don't grade them based on running against air?
Correct.
Or a wingspan.
Correct. If their hands are too small, they could probably still throw. I mean, they got a full ride at a at a Power 5 school, so they're probably fine. But we'll leave it there. Make sure that you check out the Facebook and Instagram. Always make sure that you're checking out the the TikTok, which seems like I don't know. Josh seems like he's doing a good job over there.
Traction.
What's that?
There's some traction there, yeah.
Hey, that's where there's smoke, there's fire. That's how we roll. And Kaylin and I are gonna get on, and we're gonna play a little bit of the show.
Aimed at me there, Shane. Any fire joke, I feel like you're firing at me.
I think that you're triggered. Yeah, I don't know.
You all right?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna make sure that Kaylin doesn't get too hot over here. But let's